By the time we hit our 100th year of independence in 2047, over 600 million people will be living in Indian cities. That's more than the population of US and Russia combined. Sustainable architecture is not just about green walls or solar panels, it's about buildings that works with nature, not against it. In most of the cities, we still send rainwater straight into drains. What if every building harvested rains? Every roof became a water source. That's not architecture. That's life-saving design. Imagine a city where buildings breathe, streets cool down naturally, and homes, yes, homes, grow their own food. Sounds futuristic? Right. Well, if I told you it's not only possible, it's already happening right here in India. Hi, this is architect Sumit Dhawan from Studio City Space 82 Architects, based out of Gurgaon. India is urbanizing faster than ever before. By the time we hit our 100th year of independence in 2047, over 600 million people will be living in Indian cities. That's more than the population of US and Russia combined. More people means more buildings, more traffic, more pressure on water, air, and energy. So the question is, should we build? The real question is, how do we build smarter? Sustainable architecture is not just about green walls or solar panels, it's about buildings that works with nature, not against it. It's about designing a home in Delhi that stays cool in 40-degree heat without a single air conditioner. It's about a campus in Shillong that captures fog, rain, and sunlight and runs nearly off the grid. I like to share an example with you. Let's take an example of Ahmedabad. The CEPT University campus uses shaded courtyards and natural ventilation. It's not modern, it's timeless, inspired by how Indians built for centuries. Now let's head to Bangalore. Infosys campuses uses solar energy, recycle every drop of water and reduces energy usage with AI. High tech meets traditional thinking, and that's the future. Not just that, I think water also plays a very important role in architecture. Water, or the lack of it, is already shaping our cities. In 2003, cities like Delhi and Chennai made rainwater harvesting mandatory, and the result was tremendous. Groundwater levels in part of the cities rose by 50%, and it worked beautifully. In most of the cities, we still send rainwater straight into drains. What if every building harvested rains? Every roof became a water source. That's not architecture. That's life-saving design. So what are the real challenges we face? Let's be honest, there are challenges. People say green buildings are expensive. Builder says buyers won't pay for sustainability. Government, well, they move a little slower. But here's the truth. So sustainable buildings save more than they cost. They reduce electricity bills, they cut water use, they last longer, they are not a luxury, they are an investment. Across India, things are shifting. In Mumbai, the apartment towers are using vertical gardens to beat the heat. In Pune, schools are designed to run entirely on sunlight and ventilation. In Jharkhand, tribal communities live in homes made from bamboo and mud, costing half as much as concrete, but as stronger and cooler and safer as conventional methodology. These aren't dreams, they are already real. We talk a lot about smart cities, but are our buildings smart? What if homes could adjust lighting based on your schedule? What if offices could sense empty rooms and turn on AC automatically? AI and IoT makes that possible, but the real intelligence is in how we design. Sustainable architecture isn't a checklist, it's a mindset, a way of thinking, not just for architects or planners, but for all of us because every building we raise is a vote for the kind of world we want to live in and the kind we want to leave behind. Let's build homes that care, offices that breathe, cities that heal. Let's build a future that's not just smart but sustainable together. What if your buildings could think? What if your walls could breathe with the weather? Your glass could adapt to sunlight and your concrete could heal itself. Sounds very futuristic. It's already happening through smart materialistic and emerging technologies. We've entered an era where architecture is no longer static. Buildings are becoming responsive and intelligent. We are also seeing AI power systems that adjust lighting and cooling based on real time data, sensors that monitor air quality and occupancy, and 3D printing that reduces waste by using only what's needed. This isn't just about smart homes, it's about smarter. The real innovation is not in tech, it's in intention. A jali in Rajasthan that cools without electricity is just as smart as a climate reactive facade in Singapore. So the future of architecture is not just taller, it's wiser, it's greener, and more human. Let's stop building for the eyes and start building for the planet. Before I start talking about metal, I would quickly like to walk through some of the common sustainable practices like proper orientation of building, use of cavity walls, DGU, roof insulation, terrace garden, and solar panels. These are something which we've been following anyways. Something very simple yet ignored in most of the cities is use of compressed earth blocks over kiln-burned bricks. The idea is very simple. Rather than investing money in disposal of earth, which is available because of the excavation, why not use it for the purpose of infill walls produced at the sites itself, resulting as an alternate to kiln-burned bricks, which have a high environmental impact on the society. Not just this, we can even think of using ferrocement channels as an alternate for RCC slabs, which can actually reduce the use of concrete and steel in a residential project by almost half. But having said that, yes, it has some limitation like a maximum span of 5 meter and modular grid, but one can very easily use it in variety of projects. Now, getting back to the discussions of metal, a lot of people would be surprised to know that globally, approximately 70% of the metal what we use is actually recycled. Metal, when used as a building material, be it for the structural purpose, facades, or interior applications, 99.97, that's right, 99.97% is recyclable, reusable, and renewable. Rather, I would say it's only metal as opposed to other conventional materials like stone, paint, and wood, which requires repetitive maintenance, have phases in their life cycle and loses their aesthetic values because of the weathering and other reasons. And that's the reason why most of the architects are getting their projects documented before the facade loses its charm, which is so uncool. Architecture should be an experience for humans for ages. That is the reason one should thoughtfully take a conscious decision of what to use and what not to use, which can eventually make everyone happy, be it a client, architect, and the society. Maintenance of metal is almost zero as opposed to use of paint, wood, and stone, which require a protection coat for almost every year. That is not just adding an extra cost but also causes inconvenience to the client because of regular interference of laborers and formwork for a decent amount of time. Return on investment on using metal is sometimes as good as 200%, which means a client will eventually get a return of more than what he had invested initially. There are various type of metals that can be used for the cladding purpose, starting from titanium, copper, zinc, stainless steel, aluminium, galvanized steel. It is often seen that whenever an architect is talking about metal in facades, it is associated with commercial or institutional architecture. And few of the examples which will come to our mind will be Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, in Spain by Franco Gehry, made in titanium, or the Riverside Museum by Zaha Hadid, or the Sage Gateshead in UK by Norman Foster, but no residence done in metal will come to our mind. And if the same is proposed by the architect, some of the client's apprehension will be, I hope it won't look too commercial. So that's the reason why we started using metal in our residential projects. And today we've reached a level where half the city is extensively using metal, and we feel so happy that we've changed the skyline of the cities like Delhi and NCR. And slowly, gradually, from Delhi and NCR, it has moved to almost each and every corner of India. This was one example of how the transformation has been done in society. And that's the way one can think of alternate building materials in their practices. I won't say I'm fixed to metal, but having said that, one should explore and experiment and innovate with products which are not just aesthetically acceptable, but so one should not just only focus on aesthetic values of any medium, but I think it is more than the aesthetics. It's very important for an architect to understand the technical and other impacts on the society which it will give. Lastly, one message which I like to give to most of the young architects would be that try and find a guru for yourself, somebody who you feel is right for you. This is coming from me because when I started my practice, I didn't have any guru. I tried finding somebody here in Delhi, but somehow I could not connect to any architect with whom I could have worked. Post 3 years of my practice, I saw Apollo Tires residence, which was being done by Sucha, SCDA Architects. And that was the time when I thought maybe this is somebody who I should have worked with. But by then it was too late. I think it's very important for all of us to work with somebody to gain experience. The kind of practice any architect will do is something which you need to understand once you start working with somebody. If you, in my case, I started working on my own without having any experience. And that is something which some ways or the other helped me. But more than that, I feel that I could have, what today I have achieved in 20 years, I could have maybe achieved that in 10 years. Having a good feedback from your guru, trying to get exposed to how the the office works is something which is very important. Um, uh, by giving this by giving this example, I do not want people to literally follow the guru. What I mean to say is that maybe you'll understand how the practice is practiced. Once you understand the practice, then you should start challenging the same practice, because a lot of things will be there in your mind which you feel is right for the society. So in the end, you have to amalgamate both the things and eventually do what you feel is right for the society. So that's one thing which I always feel that a young architect should follow. I made a big mistake, but having said that, a lot of other things came in my way which was equally important. So sometimes you lose something, sometimes you gain something. But I think this is one very important thing which I'm always repeating to each and everyone. Thank you.
So I would like to know which one of your project is closer to your heart.
I like to give a very good example in which one of our client from London had appointed us, and typically we are used to asking our clients whether we should be doing this, whether you are liking this, not liking this. And every time we used to go to him, he used to say, I trust you, it's your call. So all the onus used to be on us. I'm talking about TOTS residence, which I did in year 2015, I guess. It's almost been 10 years. Now the advantage of that freedom was that since you have to be responsible for whatever decision is taken at the site, there is no excuse from an architect's side to say that you had asked me to do it and that's the reason I did this. When there is freedom, then the responsibility is more. It depends on an architect how well he'll like to take that responsibility. Sometimes you'll take advantage, you'll tend to ignore that responsibility, and sometimes when the whole onus is there on you, you feel that you have to go an extra mile to make sure that nothing goes wrong with the project. So that project literally came out very, very nice. And that was the time when I realized that you have to be literally a gunda when you're doing something and you know that it is right for your project. You have to be smart, you have to be gunda, and end of the day, you have to make sure that whatever you do, you have to take the onus. You have to fight. Sometimes you have to give them excuses. For example, Vastu is a great excuse. You can tell your clients, don't do this, otherwise something is going to go wrong. Sometimes you can say, no, structurally it's not possible. It is done so that end of the day, whatever is delivered is something which is not close to your heart. It is something which is important for the society. So things like use of compressed earth blocks, as we discussed earlier, it's such a simple practice. Most of the houses today, we have basements. We are using the same earth which is excavated out of the project for your infill walls. So that's the kind of practice which is expected from most of the architects. And it's such a simple practice. It's not even expensive. It's something which is very inexpensive. But I think it's being ignored because architects are not used to this practice. So these are the kind of things which one can follow in his or her practice, which is very, very easy. Designs are subjective. Basics you need to follow, things like solar passive architecture, orientation, climate. We always talk about all of these things. But something which is very simple, we are not following. So I always urge most of the architects to make sure that do things which are simple, which are low maintenance, and something which can be remembered forever.
Do you think sustainability is actually practically achievable in our industry?
Certainly, I think we are already doing that. It's happening almost everywhere today. So, I mean, the kind of practice we do, let's say, sustainability is something which is these days abused, or I would say over abused. Sustainability is nothing, something which is meaningful, which is smarter, which is clean. In case if the practice is following functionality, it's following a reason, a brief, which has got aesthetics to it. As I said earlier, aesthetics should always be a byproduct. When you're practicing architecture, it has to be good looking. But when we say it's good looking and that's the reason we are doing is something which is not sustainable for me. But when there is a meaning to something which is a brief, and when your functionality is meeting very well with multiple reasons in it, followed by aesthetic, automatically you can call that project a sustainable project. Sustainability need not be only at the level of materials. It can be at the level of functionality, it can be at the level of social, economical, depending upon the kind of project we are dealing with. It can be accordingly conceptualized and accordingly be delivered.
What, according to you, is the need of R in our industry?
So I think The architects should be very sensitive towards what they are using, why they are using, and the kind of project they are thinking of, as in the context is going to be very important. You cannot generalize sustainability or a good practice in one sentence. A lot of times, maybe an imported stone might be acceptable for a project versus a typical phrase, what we say, go local. For me, today, the whole world is local. The kind of connectivity we have, it's all local. So, it's not very important to generalize something depending upon the kind of project one is dealing with. One can take a conscious decision what he is doing and why is he doing. And in case if he can justify that, I think that practice or that move with respect to the kind of context he is dealing with, for me, is the right approach, or is the need for an R. I mean, a lot of times we say that let's go local or let's do something which is locally available. So I personally do not agree to a standardization. I think it is very important for any architect to make sure that whatever he's doing is context based. Thank you everyone for having me here. I hope you all like this podcast. This is Sumit Dhawan signing off from City Space 82 Architects, Delhi. Thank you. ठीक है?